Most analysts on Wall Street, they look at a $500 price target for Palantir and think it's completely impossible. But that's because they're using traditional SaaS models to evaluate a company that has just printed an impressive 85% revenue growth rate at a massive 60% adjusted operating margin. In this final video of our deep dive series, we are cracking open the spreadsheet to build a bulletproof financial model, justifying the exact revenue numbers, margin expansion, and PE multiples that prove why a $500 stock price is a realistic mathematical destination for Palantir. Diving right into my projections. So looking at top line revenue growth, I have them through 2027 at 70% plus, and then it slowly is trickling down to 2030 numbers of 35%. Then for profitability, I have them being a little bit higher than revenue and then getting down to a final of 40% in 2030. And I have margins expanding up to 57%, and that gets us to our 500 to about $750 price range by 2030. Now let's go ahead and dive into each of these to justify why these numbers make sense. If we look at the past few quarters, revenue has been aggressively moving up and to the right. And one key thing to note is that both commercial and government revenue is both exploding. So it's not like just commercial revenue is going up and to the right, and revenue on the government side is starting to stagger and maybe even decrease. Now, do I think this will stay the trend going for the next couple of years? Probably not. I think commercial is still going to continue to be an explosive growth rate. But on the government side, I could see this one starting to slow down because there's only so many areas that they can continue to grow in the government unless the allied nations start to aggressively use Palantir software in their own governments. Now, if we look at Palantir's most recent quarterly earnings, they noted for the rest of 2026 that they're seeing revenue growth of about 70%. And if we look at their past for revenue estimates, if they have a history of beating or missing these numbers, we know historically that they almost always come in and beat guidance for revenue. So 2026 should beat 70% growth for revenue. And now if we try to look at how we can back into some further out revenue numbers, let's go ahead and look at the percent that US makes of total revenue. So right now, US revenue is currently 76% of total revenue. And if you notice over the past quarters, the US percent of total revenue has continued to climb. Because if you look down here, US revenue has a CAGR of over 60%, while the rest of the world is below 20%. If we stick with those 76% numbers and say US stays at that number for the full year, then based on their estimates, US for 2026 should be about 5.82 billion. And if we look at a call that Karp had with CNBC, he noted earlier in the year that he expects in 2027 the US business to double again. So that's 100% plus growth again for the US business. So if we take that 5.82 billion, doubling that would get us to 11.64 billion. Now to be super conservative, if we say the rest of the world, which is growing at less than 20% CAGR over the past couple of years, if we say, let's just say they grow at 0%, it's only the US growing, that would give us a total of $13.5 billion for revenue in 2027. And going back to my estimates, I had them get into 13.3 billion. So that's even lower than what they're projecting and verbally communicating to everyone. So while at first you might have seen these revenue numbers and thought I was over bullish on this base case, but from what we're hearing from Palantir and Karp specifically, these numbers actually look slightly bearish. Now, what gives Karp and Palantir such confidence to be able to say that like US business is going to double again in 2027? Well, they report out a couple of different metrics that kind of give us insights into future revenue. So if we look at net dollar retention, this is looking at the revenue that customers are spending today, and then it's looking at that same cohort and what they spent 12 months ago. And what we can see is they are at 150%. That means existing customers are spending 50% more today than they were last year. So when we see revenue growth of 85%, 50% of that's already coming from existing customers. So that provides a very high floor for revenue growth right now. So as noted, NDR is looking at existing customers, and we can see these customers are significantly expanding their software usage and the size of their contracts. Next, we could look at remaining performance obligations. And what RPO tells us, these are non-cancelable contracted future revenue. and that's currently up 134%, which is growing faster than the 85% revenue growth that we're seeing. And this provides a very clean signal that 2026 and 2027 could be even bigger growth rates than what we're seeing today. And remember, in my estimates, I actually have numbers slowly coming down from year over year growth. So what we're seeing in RPO could indicate the opposite. It could indicate that we're still going to see further acceleration in these numbers. Next up, let's go ahead and look at their profitability. So if we go back to net dollar retention, we can use this to kind of indicate how profitability is doing. Because when we're looking at existing customers, we know in their sales process, by the time they get to this scale phase, it's almost pure profit because implementation costs are near zero for the existing customers as they expand into additional departments, additional use cases, bringing on additional employees to use the software. All that is very low overhead. So most of this revenue is making it to the bottom line. And when we look at our RPO, we can see that there has been a huge divergence between RPO and revenue. So what this is showing is that even though revenue is exploding right now, that the demand they still cannot fully keep up with, which should indicate that revenue can continue to explode into the future. And the reason is because their software acts as a foundational operating system. Once a corporation or a government is locked into the ecosystem, the cost to maintain them drops to near zero. So it turns future contract renewals into pure profit. Now, if we're starting to look at some of the margins, we can see both for operating margin and net margin have both exploded to the upside, with net margin getting to nearly 54% and operating margin getting a little over 46%. And if we look at some of the other elite software companies out there, we can see that Palantir's impressive numbers are getting them to margin numbers bigger than some of the big dogs like Adobe and Microsoft for net margins. But we're also seeing that some of the smaller, more nimble software companies are able to command higher margins, which indicates that as Palantir grows and has more profit hit their bottom line, that they still have upside for margin expansion. So they're not in any ways capped at where they're at for their margins currently. Next up, if we look at employee count, so some companies, in order to have explosive revenue expansion, they aggressively hire, which in return hurts future profitability. And what we can see with Palantir, that is just not the case. While revenue is exploding to 80% plus right now, the employee count expansion is nowhere close to that. It's multiples lower. And if we're looking at gross margin, they were usually hanging right about that 80%, which is extremely impressive. But in most recent quarters, they've actually expanded that to nearly 85%. And the reason being is as revenue's been exploding, the cost of sales growth has actually fallen. So that divergence between revenue growth and cost of sales is what's helping gross margin expand. And the reason this is likely happening is because they're likely getting a lot more customers into that scale phase, meaning that it's not costing them a whole lot of money to continue to grow revenue with those existing customers. And if we look at free cash flow, we can see that free cash flow margin is flying up and to the right. And this is really hinting at that they're improving aggressively on their operational efficiency, that they're getting better at converting their sales into actual cash post operating expenses. So currently on a trailing 12-month basis, they're up at $2.68 billion for free cash flow. And if we tap into another Karp interview on CNBC that happened recently, he hinted at in 2 years, getting free cash flow up to $15 to $18 billion. So think of 2028 free cash flow. And remember, today they're at 2.68 billion. So that's more than a 5x to 6x, which would be absolutely wild. So if we say Karp's statement ends up being true, and he's going to have the most insight into what the future margin numbers, revenue, profitability is going to be for Palantir. So we have to take some truth with when he goes out and says these things publicly. So currently free cash flow margin for them is probably a little over 50%. So if we say in the next 2 years, it grows another percent or two and they're around 55%, in order for that free cash flow statement to be true, revenue would need to get up to $27 to $32 billion. And net income would need to be in the $15 to $16.5 billion range. And if we go ahead and look at my numbers, we are nowhere close. So in 2028, I only had them get into $21 billion versus that previous slide was saying 27 billion plus. And again, net income said 15 to 16.5 billion. I have just under 11 billion. So what I'm really baking into my two things is One, that Karp's free cash flow 2028 estimate was a little too wishful thinking, and that they don't quite hit that $15 to $18 billion free cash flow. And then the second thing is that their margins actually end up getting a little bit higher. So one of the oldest bear cases that everyone used to talk about when Palantir first went public back in 2020, 2021, into 2022 a little bit was share dilution. I mean, if there's anyone who's bearish out there, you just heard them nonstop complaining about it. They would just say, but your projections don't account for dilution. Palantir, it's diluting all shareholder value. There's gonna be no growth in profitability because they're taking it all with stock-based compensation. Just shut up. Like that bear argument, it used to be cute a couple years ago, but if you've actually followed the company, you know that it's not true anymore. I mean, you can look on the screen. Share dilution is down at 1% now. And if we look at SBC to revenue, it's down to 14%. So yeah, that argument was valid back in the 2021 timeframe, but it's not today. Technology and software companies generally sit between 5% to 15% for SBC to revenue. That's exactly where Palantir is standing right now. And the reason they do this is because they're given that equity to attract the top talent without burning their cash. So they're given equity so people have a stake in the company and they want to deliver the best product because as the product does better, so does their compensation via equity. If you're just to give them a huge salary, then they could care less about the output of the product. They're just there collecting a paycheck. You got to give them skin in the game. And also, we know they've done share repurchases before. And if we look at their balance sheet, we know they have zero debt and they're absolutely printing cash. Look at that free cash flow, 2.68 billion, and their cash position over $8 billion now. And keep in mind, Karp's 2028 free cash flow estimate, 15 to 18 billion. If they're bringing in that much cash, they're gonna have to do something with it. And there's a couple things companies can do with it. They can look to acquire smaller companies that can help to amplify their business, which I don't think really aligns with Palantir's approach. So I don't see that one happening. And then the two other things that are the most common is share buybacks or dividends. And between those two, I would say share buybacks for sure come way before a dividend ever comes with Palantir. But even if you want to say, count the share dilution in your estimates, sure, let's count 1% and let's see how little it impacts my projections. So instead of 498 to 747 by 2030, we get 479 to 718. Still well in that $500 plus target. All right, finally, let's go ahead and talk the PE ranges, 50 to 75, and why these are higher than what a average company would have. And the reason being is when we look at the estimates, both the top line and the bottom line are both growing more than what the average stock in the market would do. Their rule of 40 score being at 145%. It's nowhere close to any other software company that's in the top 100 market cap. And also remember, once they get into that scale phase with customers, they have near zero implementation costs, which means profitability should continue to expand. And Palantir is doing a staggering $1.5 million in revenue per employee. When we're looking at those top software companies, what we can see is that the rule of 40 score, Palantir is at the top. Free cash flow margin, they're near the top with the smaller, more nimble AppLovin still slightly ahead of them. Same story for revenue per employee. Palantir right at the top with still more room to go up when you're looking at them compared to AppLovin. So one final look at my projections of how we get to a $500 plus stock price by 2030 for Palantir. So that's going to wrap up this four-part series. So when you look at the elite software architecture, the unwavering wartime leadership, the explosive boot camp flywheel, and the sheer power of this compounded math, the conclusion, it becomes clear. Palantir, it's not just a trade, it's a foundational, multi-decade thesis. We've laid out the entire roadmap to $500. Now it's just a matter of execution. If you enjoyed this four-part deep dive series, smash that subscribe button down below and let me know your price target in the comments below. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Peace.